the new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire. The empty seat. Who was actually just that, an empty chair in your office because you couldn't find someone to fill it. So it just sat there costing you money with all its fancy ergonomic features. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can make it easy to fill that seat with the right candidate. With nearly 60% of businesses finding someone to interview in the first week alone. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
Where is Daredevil?
I'm right here. Don't miss the return of Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again.
So what's next?
I feel liberated.
We're gonna take this city back.
Over medicated.
In an all-new season, now streaming only on Disney+.
They're hunting us. It's time we started hunting them.
I can work with that.
This should be tons of fun.
Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again, now streaming only on Disney+.
Stand by for picture. First positions, everyone. Yo, go.
And action! Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Filmmakers Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about filmmaking, from indie film to studio films to high-end TV to documentaries and everything in between. How to get them made, how to make them, and how to try not to F it up, in our very, very humble opinion. I'm Giles Alderson. I'm a writer, director, and a producer. And on today's show, we have an absolutely phenomenal one for you, because we are joined by an Oscar-winning director who has crafted some of the most iconic moments in modern film and television. He won an Academy Award for his live-action short film, Dear Diary, and he has directed legendary TV episodes for Sex and the City, Entourage, and The Morning Show. But he's perhaps best known for directing the absolute pop culture masterpiece, The Devil Wears Prada. Yes, it is the brilliant director, David Frankel. And I managed to catch David right after he finished the mix stage for this highly anticipated new film. And he gives us an incredibly candid look at the realities of studio filmmaking, including the chaos of having his post-production schedule slashed by at least 6 weeks after the studio bumped their release date up to May the 1st to replace an Avengers movie. We also dive deep into David's deeply collaborative directing style. He shares why he prefers to walk onto set and pretend he doesn't know what he's doing, allowing legends like Meryl Streep and Emily Blunt to organically find their blocking. He also takes us all the way back to the original Devil Wears Prada, explaining why he initially hated the script and how his pitch to reframe Miranda Priestley as a heroine of excellence completely changed the trajectory of the film. This is David Frankel and myself, Giles Alderson, having a great chat. It's a masterclass in collaboration, not myself and David, but David and what he does with his crew. It's about trusting your gut and rolling with the punches. So grab a brew. Don't forget to get your notebooks out to make notes. And welcome to the show, David Frankel. How are you? All right?
Yeah, it's surviving.
Yeah. Surviving. I'm not surprised. There's a lot going on right now.
Well, we just finished the movie a few weeks ago, so it's been quite a rush.
A few weeks ago?
Yeah, where I was still on the mix stage like 2 weeks ago.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's quite a fifth. We're filmmakers as well, the Filmmakers Podcast, so we're all directors, producers, writers who do this, so we love to chat to filmmakers about the ins and outs of everything. So hang on to...
we were in prep a few weeks out from starting to shoot, and the studio said, this Avengers movie that was going to open on May 1st is probably not going to be ready, so we'd like you to be out on May 1st, and that meant that our post was... shortened by at least 6 weeks or so.
Wow.
So it's been really accelerated. It feels like a long time. We wrapped in October and now here it is 6 months later, but
Yes.
6 months in the world of major filmmaking is not that long.
It's not that long at all.
Yeah.
You obviously had to get all the deliverables ready for everyone
All that,
to do
yeah,
all that
yeah.
good stuff. How did that feel then to shorten that amount of time? How was that? Because normally you'd be saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, I've got time to think about it."
I mean, the big thing is, you want an opportunity to put the movie in front of audiences and see how they react and, adjust accordingly. And you just want to have time, to do that. And so that means sort of accelerating the creative process. But, it's fun. It's like a Polaroid, you just,
just
it's all,
regular.
there's no reshooting. There's no, additional photography. It's just, here's the movie we made. Yeah.
Right. I loved it, by the way.
Thank you.
I thought it was fantastic.
Thank you.
Right. It was so heartwarming and interesting and emotional. It was way more emotional than I thought it was going to be going into this film. I didn't know what to expect. But I thought it was beautiful filmmaking. I thought
Thank
it was
you.
really well made.
Appreciate that.
Let's dive into that then in terms of your shots.
Yeah.
And thinking about how you would design a movie like this. Are you a storyboard man? Is that what the kind of thing you like to do?
We did a handful of storyboards. We had a much more complicated opening sequence that got storyboarded that got modified, and simplified. I feel like that was sort of there was a montage in the middle in Milan, and with some wipes. That's kind of a reference to montages in the first movie, and so we designed that and we used storyboards just to kind of think about that. But and it was that was a sequence that we added in the course of production, and it needed an extra day of shooting, and I had to make a presentation to the studio because it was going to cost them a lot more money for the extra day and all the costumes and the new location, and multiple locations, and so there was a whole dog and pony show that went into that.
Right.
So there were storyboards for that.
Storyboards for that, but normally you don't. Normally you're kind of shotless.
No. I'm like I remember hearing about Spielberg or Stanley Kubrick, and they, you think about it a lot. You plan, you go with the DP, you think really seriously about how you block it. And then I walk on to the set and pretend I have no idea and see what the actors do. And usually they fall into, exactly how you would imagine it. I mean, that's the thing. The actors, these are amazing actors, and they know these characters so much better than I ever would. And their instincts are impeccable.
Yeah, it is something Spielberg says. He says, if I'm not nervous going on to my set every day, then I get this, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, why am I here?
Why am I here?
Yeah, it's if you could do it in your sleep, like you should just stay asleep.
Stay asleep because you're sort of almost, you've already shot it, or there's different ways, and I think it works for different directors. How does that make you feel then when you're going on to set in the mornings going, I don't know what could happen today?
Yeah. I mean, there's great energy. I literally, sometimes we plan and, we need the crane here and we're going to, there's a shot in the movie where we zoom out in front of the Duomo, and it's like, all right, there's a lot of coordination. How do we hide the movie star in the middle of all these tourists or, how many cameras, and all the planning, obviously, that, goes into everything. I mean, when we're shooting a fashion show, there's got to be a spider cam and, cranes and, handhelds and, coordinating the choreography. I mean, there are a lot of things that obviously get planned down to, very carefully. But the joy and the fun of it is playing and being surprised. And, fortunately, when you're working with actors of this caliber, they just consistently surprise you in the best possible way.
Yeah. Well, those moments then where an actor has done that, or Meryl or Emily has just gone, how about if I stand here? Or I'll go over here. And you go, yeah, that's a full relight. Or did you block it through first thing in the morning? Talk us through a day sort of, or a morning?
For example, like when we're shooting on the steps of the museum, that opening scene where Miranda gets out of her van and meets Nigel, so this scene was written where you see her get out of the van, and then there's a lot of shots of the crowd, and then you find them chatting at the top of the steps.
Yeah,
and that's how it's scripted. And Meryl said, no, I'd like to chat while we're walking up the steps, and we'll turn and we'll pretend that we're thrilled and posing for
Yeah, for
photos,
the
and really
photos.
our lives are falling apart. And okay, let's figure out how we do that.
Yeah.
And then there's we rehearsed at the end of daylight, and then waited for night, and figured out how we were going to capture it.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's an adventure every time, and you sort of hope that the actors will have a great idea.
Does that mean sometimes that because you plan how long you're going to do certain scenes, you kind
Yeah.
of think this will probably be an hour, or this might be morning, or this might be this. And obviously now you've changed potentially where the camera's going to be, which might need a total
All of
relight.
that, yeah.
So, and that means that sometimes your scenes will be finished way earlier,
Yeah.
and some will go over. How do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean,
sometimes?
there's, the going over is you just causes chaos and panic and among
Yeah.
everybody. That didn't happen too often, fortunately. Or you have to figure out how you're going to catch up and make your day.
Mm.
We have this cool scene with a pop star backstage, and again, had no idea how exactly we were going to stage it. I knew I wanted her to sit in front of a mirror, and Meryl would walk in, but then after that, let's see what happens. And we shot the master, and I said, "Wow, I don't even know how to do the coverage here, so forget it. That's it. That's the scene. It'll be a oneer, and let's move on and do something else."
I love
And
that.
that's terrifying. You have this incredible moment, iconic actors, and you're not shooting their close-ups. But the studio was like, "What? What did you do here?"
Yeah. Do you not want to get any just in
Yeah,
case? Like, no,
yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah,
And that's taking charge as a director as well, and taking control, and sort of going, well, I
Yeah.
love what we have.
exactly.
And therefore, when I'm in the edit, I don't have that choice to go, well, I
Yeah.
have to cut to a close-up. We
Yeah.
haven't got it.
Yeah,
And I think that's a powerful statement,
yeah.
right?
Roll the dice.
Roll the dice.
Yeah, but I don't do that too often, honestly, because one of the great luxuries of making a bigger budget movie is that you have the time to do coverage, and you have and that gives you so much more control in post in terms of pacing. I think that's something that people don't talk enough about in filmmaking is being able to really control the pace. One of the adjective we used starting to write the script was propulsive. That was something that the first movie kind of, not by accident, but it was something that we discovered was the pacing was essential. You just always wanted the movie to keep moving. It's so you become familiar with that energy, associate that with these characters. And so there's a lot of short scenes, and the movie just keeps going.
Propulsive. That's a great word to use, actually. I think that's really interesting. Let's talk about the first one then. How did it come to you in the first place, in terms of your involvement?
I got a script from my agents, and
Really?
they said, yeah, the studio's been working on this movie for 2 years. They've had 4 writers take a stab at it. And I said, wow, it's really intriguing. Like, fashion world sounds cool. And they said, all right, meet with the producer. And I reread the script, and I realized, I hated the script. I just was not one scene in the script that I felt comfortable directing. And I said, get me out of this meeting. Pretend I had a childcare problem or something. I can't get on the phone. And so about 2 weeks later, Wendy Feinerman, the producer, called back and said, can he get on the phone now? Did he solve his childcare problem? And I was really resistant, and my manager talked me into it, and I got on the phone with her, and we started talking. I said, here's all the things I would want to change. And she said, great, let's go talk to the studio. And I said, look, first of all, the novel and all the adaptations were revenge stories. And Miranda was really the villain. And for me, in my interpretation of the story, Miranda is the heroine. I'm surrounded by powerful working women who juggle life and work and love what they do. And Miranda, a woman who's aiming for excellence, is a hero to me. And the fact that has flaws or is a little impatient with the people who aren't excellent around her is a virtue. So it was just a new take on how to tell that story. And the studio embraced it, and Meryl embraced it, and here we are.
Isn't that amazing how sometimes these things can happen? And by you going into that meeting going, I don't really want this, it's not for me, by being so honest and open about it, made them go, great, we want that. And you then went, oh, now I have to deliver that.
Well, and then, fortunately, got paired up with a brilliant screenwriter, Aline Brosh McKenna, and someone who really identified with the character Andy, but understood the dynamic between Andy and Miranda beautifully, knew the fashion world, and also just a workaholic herself. It's just someone who would just run through walls until we got the scenes right.
Which is amazing. Were the cast already attached when you?
No, nobody was attached. So
okay.
We had the script and went to Meryl, and Meryl said yes, and
wow.
And then the first actor I met with was Annie Hathaway.
Really?
But then there was a problem making her deal, and the studio went to every other young actress in Hollywood, seemingly at the time. And then mercifully, we circled back to Annie, and the chemistry between them, right off the bat was fantastic.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And Emily was, just, I auditioned, like 100 young actresses again. And somewhere in the process, there was a tape of this young British girl I never heard of. And I said, that's it, like no, and after I saw her, there was no one else who I could even think about giving the part to.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, she wasn't even available. She was supposed to do a dragon movie,
That's right.
and fortunately, she didn't get that, and we snagged her.
Yeah, and it worked out very well for you.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing when you get those moments when in the casting, especially when it's not names and you're casting for the other roles, and you just go, oh no, that's it. There's something magic that happens, isn't there, where you just go, that's what I want.
I mean, Emily was a movie star from the first time I saw her, like in a T-shirt on a bad VHS tape.
Yes.
It's like, there's just people who leap off the screen, and you get it.
What is it you look for in castings then, or when you're looking for actors to come in, or they're going into the room with you, or they're sending a tape? What is the thing that works for you the most, do you think?
I mean, there's some sense of the character that you imagine, and somebody walks in and they nail it. It's one of those things that's impossible to define. And sometimes it's the opposite of what you imagine. Sometimes someone comes in and they're not at all how you pictured it, and yet you go, oh, it can't be anything else.
Yeah, I know. Have you ever lost an actor when you really wanted to work with them? You're like, that's perfect. That's who I want for any of your films. And then,
our casting directors said something really interesting to me, because there were definitely people that we tried to cast or didn't make deals with, and they said, you get the cast that you deserve. You get the cast that is right. And the ebb and flow of the casting process is sometimes disappointing, and but then you find someone who maybe is better.
Yeah, you do sometimes, but I agree with that. You get the cast that's right for you and the cast that you deserve. If you might really want someone, but they can't do it for various reasons, it wasn't meant to be. I always feel that way. I feel it's supposed to happen for the right reasons.
Yeah, and it's hard. Someone comes in, makes you laugh, makes you cry, whatever. They're obviously talented, or they're on the cusp of greatness, and you say, "Oh, I want to bottle that." But then the next person surprises you in a new way.
Yeah, totally. And the success of, the first movie as well, huge. I mean, were you expecting it? I mean, Meryl's obviously a star.
Not expecting it at all. Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, just, the whole goal was, please, let the studio make their money back and let me get another job.
Yeah, basically,
Yeah. No, it was a shock, I think, to everyone that the way the movie connected, and especially the way it connected around the world. That was, the global appeal, and completely, unforeseen by most of us.
Yeah, and obviously not doing a sequel for this amount of time as well. Meryl's was one of the main reasons for it, and also the story and idea. And coming back together now must have been really incredible. I hear you work with some of the same crew as well, which is
Yeah.
also super, and just
Yeah.
they're your family, they're your friends.
Yeah.
Talk us through about crew and working with the same people.
Well, I've made a lot of films with Florian Ballhaus, who's the DOP, and he's not just got a great eye, but he's one of the funniest people I know, and a great storyteller. And he's very keen to remind me sometimes when we go off path, that where the story is or where the comedy is. He has great taste. So it's, he's a true collaborator. We had the same production designer, the same composer, Molly Rogers, our costume designer, worked on the first movie also with Patricia Field. Even like our key grip and our gaffer were on the first movie. All the producers are the same, and obviously the writer. So yeah, the continuity was fantastic, and there's a real shorthand. Obviously working with all the same people.
Yeah. What do you expect from your production designer, or especially a crew, your HODs? How do you talk to them? What do you expect from them with you? How do you collaborate? What works for you?
I encourage them. I don't present anything to them. I encourage them to just bring me their best ideas, and that gives them a freedom and an opportunity to really explore and surprise me. And then we work through things. I think the biggest challenge, we have this big fashion show at the end of the movie, and originally we were planning to do that in the streets of Milan with the Duomo in the background.
Wow.
And Jess Gonchor worked for weeks and designed this set for that. And we realized if we do it in such a public place, we won't have enough control of the space.
Yeah.
And literally like about 2 weeks before we were shooting, we pivoted to this beautiful courtyard at the Brera Academy, and he had to redesign the whole set. And but he had a great team and worked really closely with the Italians and worked out.
Yeah, it sounds like you're a great collaborator, and I think that's so important on a film set, to have that. Otherwise, you're just sort of dictating, or someone's dictating at the top. And we've heard the stories where they don't work, but it sounds like you're very collaborative and very sort of, no, I want your ideas. I want you to help me.
Oh yeah, everybody I work with has made many more movies than me. And that's an important thing to remember. And that includes the actors, but it's everybody on the crew also. And they have vastly more experience at this. And the last thing they need me to do is be telling them what to do. It's, I'm like an audience, or, I'm just someone who's is going to react and appreciate. And I'll give a little suggestion and, tighten your tie, but the ideas and the creativity are really coming from the people I'm surrounded by.
Which is so lovely to hear, because it's so nice to have that on set where everyone is working together for the same goal. It gives people autonomy of what they're doing. They're mini directors of their own little areas, which is so important, right?
Right. The last thing I want to do is just my ideas.
Yeah.
I can promise you that it would be too limited.
Yes.
So, and it's important also, Aline was on set the whole time. So you have the opportunity to rewrite or reconceive if that's necessary. If a location changes, we can adapt really well. So that fluidity is really valuable, and just staying open to new ideas.
Do you have your screenwriter on set for most of your films?
No, that was rare, but it was on the first movie. She was not on set very much, but each day I would, before I went to work, she was in LA, so it was really early her time, but I'd call her and I'd say, here's what we're shooting today. Here's the location. There's no way this dialogue fits here. So let's adapt this. And then I need like 6 new punchlines for this joke. And she would send me a whole memo. So we'd be able to give the actors, new lines to do. And so it was very collaborative. Even speeches like the Cerulean speech got adjusted, the night before. And, we we collaborated then, and it's just a really nice relationship.
Yeah, I love that. And you used to write as well. You've wrote, directed
Yes.
in your time. If you don't mind, talk about your beginning. Obviously, winning an Oscar for your live short as well, Dear Diary, which is incredible. But before that, I found so interesting your journey sort of went from UPM to suddenly you're executing on a TV show, and then you've made 5 TV shows. And so just jump into how that happened, because our filmmakers out there are going, how do you do that?
Yeah.
Did you?
Well, I had a job during the day, and then I would write at night. And eventually, I was lucky enough to meet a writer, Norman Steinberg, who became my mentor. And he had written some great movies, Blazing Saddles with Mel Brooks. And he hired me to create a sitcom for Ellen Burstyn, the actress. And that was my first professional writing gig.
The Ellen Burstyn Show, right?
The Ellen Burstyn Show.
Yeah.
And so we did that. We did, a couple other shows together. And then, I kind of, through that experience, I directed some of the episodes. I got the directing bug, and I had written, we'd written a couple, I wrote a movie with Norman. I wrote another movie, and I wasn't thrilled with the way the direction went.
Okay.
And I thought, like, well, let me give it a shot. And so I created a show called Grapevine that I wrote and directed, and that got a lot of attention at movie studios, strangely enough. And so I made my first movie, Miami Rhapsody, came out of that experience, which was really gratifying. And at the time, that movie is 100 shots, and it's 91ers, because I had no idea. I didn't understand coverage. I didn't want to shoot coverage. So yeah, it's very few shots.
Is that because you'd come from the TV side, or was it, why did you?
Yeah, no, I just was, my naivete, I just hadn't, I understood how to edit and so, but I just thought, let me make this as fluid as possible. And so most of the scenes are one shot, and it was an interesting challenge.
That's a wonderful challenge. And then interestingly, from there, to talk about your TV side as well, Band of Brothers, Entourage, Morning Show, which is incredible, by the way, and all your episodes especially.
Thank you.
But jumping from TV to film, and do you find there's a difference? Do you find there's a difference in control or how you direct?
Well, sure. There's a difference in control. There's shows where I've been the writer, director, showrunner, and then there's shows where I'm just a director for hire on those shows, and I'm, not involved in the writing process. And it's just a very different collaboration. The showrunner in television is always running Shonda Rhimes is running the show on Inventing Anna, and Michael Patrick King was running Sex and the City, and Doug Ellen was running Entourage. And so you're collaborating very closely with these very talented writers. But movies, you're you're at the wheel, and it's a different experience. I remember I had, on Sex and the City, all the writers would come to the set, and it was
how many?
10 or 12 people would come every day that you were shooting. And you'd set up at the Video Village, and I would be, sitting next to the DP and the script supervisor. And then I set up stadium seating so that all the writers could see the monitor. So there was different height directors' chairs.
Great
and
idea.
They were.
That's a great idea.
It was like an audience.
Yeah.
And they were sitting behind me
on bleachers.
And then we do a take, and I turn around and make sure they didn't have any thoughts about it. And then the first day on the Devil Wears Prada, I remember, I said cut, and I turned around. Nobody was there. And it's actually
why is no one there? Yeah, I want some support.
There's that. Where's the peanut gallery?
Yeah, exactly. Where's all the thumbs up? Yeah.
It's a kind of lonely feeling, but it was gratifying also.
I agree. I remember the first day on my first feature film, I expected my execs to be on my shoulders.
Yeah.
So I'm literally going, hey, is it? And same thing. And suddenly you went, oh no, it's me. I've got to do this.
Oh no, it's me.
It's me.
It's actually
oh no,
the feeling.
It's me.
And I still have that feeling. I still, because we're making these, you're making entertainment, you want an audience, and you want to make sure that you haven't missed something. And so, I always imagine what the peanut gallery would say. And honestly, on this project, I did have the support of great producers. So they did step in when I was screwing up.
But it's also nice because it means that they trust you as well.
Yeah.
Because they will be there in the peanut gallery. We'll call it the peanut gallery, diminishing their roles amazingly. But, they will come and see something, or they will come and say if it's not right, or and that's nice. But it's also good to know that you're in control and you're in charge, right, on a film set. And I think that's the important thing to know. Oh, it's my vision.
Yeah.
And as long as everyone is helping and serve that, then it...
Yeah, and you also, the actors need to know that you're the one that they can trust.
Yes.
And, because that's all that's happening there is I'm an audience for them. And they'll be freer to do their best work if there's real trust on the floor.
Yeah. And you also help, with students, and you go and do talks and advice for various people as well. Let's say you're there supervising a student film, and obviously it's very different to a Hollywood movie set.
Yeah.
What kind of things do you say to them to help them and support them through?
This episode is brought to you by Perfect Bistro Cat Food. Cats, this ad is for you. Has your human ever called you picky, persnickety, choosy? If so, Perfect Bistro Cat Food is for you. With ingredients like wild-caught tuna and pasture-raised lamb, tantalizing textures, and delectable flavors that meet even the most discerning cat standards. You're not picky, you're just perfectionists. Perfect Bistro, mealtime perfection for every cat. Have your human visit perfectbistro.com.
Well, a lot of students are, first of all, they're really tied to what they wrote, not trusting the actors to put it in their own rhythms or own language sometimes. And it's just important to, if the gist of the idea is right and the music of the dialogue is right. Trust the actors. That's one thing. I do find that people have they storyboard, this is all I'm shooting. And they're not open enough to working on the fly. A lot of times they won't get enough coverage. Really student films, the other thing I noticed is they're not careful enough about the sound.
Yes.
And, they don't appreciate how important really perfect sound is when you get into the cutting room, and how bad sound really limits the flexibility of your edit.
I totally agree. It's something that people do forget. It's the first thing you notice, isn't it? On any film, you can forgive a bad shot or out of focus or a bad performance. You can, but sound, you actually can't.
No.
It just makes everything cheaper.
Yeah.
And finally then, in terms of dealing with a difficult day, a bad day, or something where something goes wrong, how do you overcome that? What do you do to sort of go, I need to do this or adapt, or something that's hurt you?
Yeah. I mean, there was one scene in the movie where I had an idea about how we should shoot it, and it's an important scene and a lot of big expectations for the moment. And I staged it incorrectly. I just, I screwed up, and I realized it immediately. I went home that night. I couldn't sleep, and I spent the whole night, furiously writing texts to everybody on the show, especially at the studio, saying, I need you to figure out how to give me more time so I can reshoot this. And fortunately they did. They understood, and it didn't happen every day.
No, so of course.
There was some allowance.
Yeah.
But that's again, the luxury of working with a big studio in a big budget, and there's some flexibility. But I had the collaboration of the actors, and that they understood where we'd gone wrong and how to improve it.
Yeah, and that's what you want. There's team on side. David Frankel, thank you so much.
Oh, thanks. What a fascinating interview. Really
absolute pleasure. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. Thank you. That was David Frankel talking about his career, talking about Devil Wears Prada and his new film, Devil Wears Prada 2, which obviously stars Meryl Streep, Anne Hathaway, or as everyone calls her, Annie. Quite like Emily Blunt, and some amazing other talent as well, Stanley Tucci, the list goes on. It's just really cool. It's a really fun film. I I went into this thinking, okay, I don't know what to expect. It's a sequel. It could be like Sex and the City movie. What's going to happen here? And it wasn't. It was actually really marvellous. It was really fantastic. It was brilliantly directed, really thought about shots, even though he says he kind of thinks about it on the day. It's stunning. You really feel for the characters and you get in there. And they've updated it, obviously, to modern times. And is Miranda Priestley still stuck in the past? And it's really lovely take on it. I highly recommend. It's in cinemas now. Go watch it. Why not? Why wouldn't you? Cannes is coming up, by the way. Have you all got your tickets? You all ready? You got your accommodation? You got your passes? There's been some sort of issue this year with the Cannes accreditation passes. Not everyone's got them. I think this is due to the fact that if you put exec producer or producer on your application, that means they want you to pay. They want you to get Sinando and they want you to have the meetings. So I think that's the reason why. If you haven't got in this year, that's probably the reason why. But do not despair. You do not need to be in the market for Cannes. You do not need to be in all those tents getting hot. You can be in the hotels and you can be on the beaches and you can be on the Croisette where you can meet people and chat and talk about your project should you wish. It is an amazing place to be to talk filmmaking and meet other filmmakers, so I highly recommend it, in whatever stage of your career you are. So that's coming up. Sessions, we're just cutting a new trailer now for that, which is very exciting. Hopefully cinema release coming up later this summer. Again, more on that when I know. Other than that, I'm just writing. I'm creating at the moment, getting on with stuff, thinking about what the next project is, which is good, and I hope you are too. As I always say, I really think it's important that you do something each week or each day to move your project forward. I know it's not easy to just go out there and film on your iPhone, even though there's so many of our podcast guests say, look, you have got a camera in your pocket. That doesn't mean it's easy. But that doesn't mean you can't prep. That doesn't mean you can't think about who to speak to, who to email, who to reach out to about getting your project made. And when you're doing that, huge tip, always research the person you're reaching out to. Write something nice about their film. Watch their films. You know, if you're reaching out to Piers Tempest, let's say, who's just done I Swear, you better have watched I Swear. Write something nice about it. Get his attention. Why should he work with you? Or why should anyone? But anyway, I hope you're good. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Thank you for listening. Give us a review on your podcast app of choice now. This is also on YouTube, by the way, so you can see me struggling away. If you want to, with the interviews on our YouTube channel, the Filmmakers Podcast, go on there and give us a subscribe. It really will mean a lot. Do that. And if you're lucky enough to rise up and do well, it is your duty to send that elevator back down. Send the lift back down. Send whatever it is you're up there back down and help those below you. Do your best. I know it's not easy. And we will see you next Tuesday. We've got some amazing guests coming up. Loads more indie filmmakers, loads more people who have gone out there and crafted and grafted and got stuff made. So that is exciting to look forward to that. Thank you for everyone who's listened to the last few weeks and the great comments we've had back. Much appreciated. Right. I'm going to go put on my best frock and my high heels, a Louboutin, and dance around to the latest track on Devil Wears Prada. I'm probably not. It's just an outro. I'm trying to get out. I'm trying to say goodbye. Goodbye.